Da da da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. I made it. I just walked in the door, and every step in walking in that door seemed to be a little bit of a catastrophe. But we are all sorted out right now. We're live, you guys. If you've never popped into one of my lives before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And sometimes it is just riding those waves, right? Sometimes we do get those waves consistently, one after another. And it is to see how we hold up in that stress, in that hurry scurry. I have no problem with the hurry scurry. Fast pace, that's my thing. Sometimes that's a weakness too, because when you rush through things, you do a half a job, don't you? You don't always put your very best foot forward. And, I'm guilty of that myself. But that little wow, it was just like dominoes. As soon as I resolved one thing, there was a next thing. I walked in the door, I could smell burning wires, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what happened? Right? And I could see smoke on the ceiling. Well, it turned out it happened to be my bed fan. I sleep with a fan, and the motor, I guess, died on the fan, and that was the smell of the burning wires, right? The smoke itself wasn't really smoke, because after I got that one dealt with, I'm going, oh my goodness, I got smoke in here. And then it wasn't the smoke, because I just ran in the house, right? And I'm rushing around trying to get ready for my life. It's steam. It's winter, you guys. I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. And we had snow flurries today. And I walked home. I think I did about 6 kilometers today in the cold, but it didn't feel cold because of the pace that I was in, and because I was dragging my granny wagon behind me, going 100 miles an hour trying to get home, that I had built up that steam in me. And of course, I'm wearing a big, heavy wool sweater because it was cold, right? That just added on to the sweat. But I dealt with the fan, went and washed my glasses, got my glasses on, turned on everything so I could jump into my live, and then just recognized that I had traipsed muck all through my apartment, and I couldn't relax and do my live. So I had to grab the mop and mop everything up. And then I sat down to do my live. I'm ready to go now. And I go, oh my goodness, I didn't even make a cup of coffee. I don't have time to make a cup of coffee today, but I never go live without a drink. And I certainly do need a drink tonight, because I've been running around for the past half an hour, going 100 miles an hour. I need to get something down. So I ran to the fridge and I get some juice. And then I sit down and I go, okay, we're in it now. We're going to do our live now. And I turned on my computer, forgetting that it updated last night and it wouldn't let me go live. Oh my goodness, it was all set up and everything. So, of course, I crashed the live. So if you see an upcoming live, that would be me. Ignore it. I'm here now in a different live. I set it all up again. But right, that's what we got to do. When I go at that steam, it always takes me a few minutes to calm down, right? Not calm down, but come down, right? Because when you're in that mode, that's the mode you want to be in order to get things done. But when you're sitting and relaxing, right, you want to bring yourself down. Nobody wants to see the frazzle. Everybody's had their own frazzle all day long. They don't need to be coming in and be entertained by somebody who is in the frazzle themselves. Okay, you guys, let me grab my cards. I didn't have anything in particular tonight that I wanted to talk about only because I was deep in it today, you guys. I don't know about anybody else out there, but I got a plate full of revelations and contemplations and things to munch on and topics that I felt I had resolved, and I find myself in the midst of it again, and in that decision making that sometimes we don't want to make, right? Sometimes we have to make hard decisions for ourselves. Sometimes we are the guardians and we have to make hard decisions for other people. And I have to, right, respect that in the way that it relates to, right, those lessons that we get in life that we would prefer not to receive. And I got a dish full today. Hello, Eugene. Thank you so much for popping into my live today. I'm just settling into the live. You caught me right at the beginning, pretty much. But yeah, I'm just seeing if there's a flow for me tonight, and I feel nothing. So Cindy's on her own. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to pull a card, you guys. We're going to pull a card. Life is always divvying out lessons. And again, in that repetitiveness of things that come across our path that's supposed to get our attention and give us moments of contemplation on a subject. Sometimes, we have these things come across our paths, the answers all day long to that one problem that's probably been eating us up for a week or a month or a year, right? And we're so into the problem, we don't pay attention to the things that might offer up solutions or answers to those problems. And, this is something I am practicing. I am practicing, but it's also something that comes a little bit natural to me, coming from a dynamic upbringing. And lots of us have had dynamic upbringings, that it does sometimes make us very snowblowers going on. I'm just going to close the window here. I don't think it'll make a difference. Yeah, snowblowers, Winnipeg, Manitoba. um, Sometimes coming from dynamic families, that we can find ourselves in situations where we break down in the confidence of what we know to be true. We can know it to be true, right? But sometimes in that, well, honor thy mother, thy father, pay attention to the teacher, right? That you look at people and you listen to people, and they're giving you directives, they're projecting onto you, and you take that as truth, even though you know for yourself that it's not a truth for you. And you wear that knowing that it's not a truth. And I grew up that way. And it's part of my makeup. It's part of why I butt heads sometimes in what is in opposition to how I feel, how I understand things, what I know as a truth for myself. But again, being that people pleaser, right? And in that lack of self-confidence, right? That faith that we should have in ourselves, in believing that something's true, we still gobble up the stuff that comes out of people's mouths. We take on truths, right, that don't belong to us. Because your mother is Catholic and is devout, does that mean that that love and that draw to something else that you have in your soul, right, is an untruth because somebody else is drilling into you their beliefs, and because you don't want to rub people wrong, you don't want to butt heads because you trust where that information is coming from. We can second guess ourselves. We could actually disrespect ourselves by not holding on to what's true for you, for me. And this is something that in practice we get a little bit better at, in my dynamic family, I wasn't the only empath, uh, but I think I was more of a percentage of being an empath than my other sisters, only because of that butting head, only because I'm looking for a protector, right? And so, of course, in being children who were brought up to have free choice, I'm not going to choose what's uncomfortable, what makes me feel bad, what makes me feel like a zero or a loser, right? And, I am my father's daughter through and through. But what scares me, right, is that I'm also my mother's daughter. And I cannot deny that, even though I would so much sometimes like to. But I trust myself. And so sometimes we have to make those hard decisions, right? Because we've got to trust ourselves more than we trust anybody else, right? And that's the truth for me, right? We're all brought up differently. And again, in not wanting to rub people badly or to butt heads, right? I could sit here and just, right, keep it to yourself, Cindy, right? But it's a tidbit that serves. It's a tidbit that might resolve some really serious issues in our life if we can stand up for ourselves, right? If we can hold on to those truths that we know so well to be truths. And we don't have to call anybody liars, right? Because lots of times, right, they've learned it from their parents, their teachers, their bosses, right? Their friends. And we're all susceptible to the influence that's around us. One of the first things I learned is that we are the few people that we surround ourselves with. I believe, right? I swung my father's way, and my father was very introverted. He wasn't very social within his own home. Outside, his jobs required him to be social, just like mine: waitressing, bartending, club promoting, retail customer service. These are qualities that I built up in experience. And there were lessons in that because I really saw the magic of that service, how it made people feel, how it made them connect with me, and sometimes, right, connect with whatever business I was working for, because I was an employee. I wasn't self-employed. I was an employee. So of course, when you're an employee, you're representing whatever company, whoever your boss is, whatever his directives are. He's putting the roof over your head, right? And if you don't agree with him, and lots of bosses, right, they do take feedback. feedback. I do have worked for companies who have, encouraged me to step forward. Even in this last job for the first, oh my goodness, 3 years, right? My boss was so awesome and so, I'm going to have to say, compromising with me because she was a very headstrong person. My boss was a narcissist. She was an amazing, both my bosses were narcissists, but my first manager, she was amazing, absolutely amazing, right? You don't want to butt heads with her because she'd tear you and shred you into a million pieces. But if you're loyal, right, and you're hardworking and you abide by the rules, right? And she would have never asked anybody to do anything that she wouldn't do herself. And she would not give anybody heck without giving everybody heck because we were a team. My mother kind of worked that way too. A little bit differently, though. If I got in trouble, I wasn't just punished. We were all punished, all four girls, me and my three sisters. We would all be punished, right? But it wasn't in punishment. It was just working as a team and working in a way that we knew how things were supposed to be run. And there were no problems if we ran things the way that things were supposed to be run. I thought she was absolutely amazing. Being an empath and be able to get along and actually consider a manager your friend. I looked up to her so much. I was so sad when she left. But I was optimistic everything was going to go okay. And the thing is, that was her life and things were moving in a positive way for her and I wanted that for her too. Things don't always work out the way that you think that they will. And we got a new manager, and unfortunately, that relationship with the new manager was nothing like, right, with the manager of the old. But you know what? We can't expect that we're going to get along with everybody because everybody has their own story. Everybody has their own weaknesses and their own strengths, right? And working with my narcissist boss, I became very headstrong. Not narcissist, I'm still empathic that way, but in learning to have the confidence to be my own person and always, stepping into the job and having to put your best foot forward, not just wanting to put your best foot forward, but having to put your best foot forward because that was the job. That was the right roof over your head. And being empathic, we kind of don't always rub each other well. But if we put that extra effort and extra attention in, we can make ourselves invaluable. That's a truth too. It's hard, right? When you do that. I know in a lot of, I don't know where I'm going off on this, but it's better than doing it by myself in the moment. But I was going to I was going to say, it's pretty amazing that you can pick up these skills through our experiences and we can learn by them. We don't always have to wait for somebody to tell us what to do. In fact, if I'm working for somebody, I want them to know what they do. I don't want to tell them what to do. I want all of us to be able to come on to the floor and know our jobs and actually not just know our jobs, but know everybody else's jobs and know everybody, right? Get to know their weaknesses, know their strengths, know where you can pick up in their slack or in those free moments that you have when they ask for help in what they're weak in, that you can spend a little time in teaching them so that they can fill their own gaps. right? And that's how we do become independent. That's how we get to be our own persons, our own bosses, right? Be able to make good decisions for ourselves because we are having those experiences, right? We are having those adventures in life that offer up opportunities to gain experience, right? And it's not always for everybody. Lots of times, especially for bosses, right? They just designate, right? Do this, do this, do this. And that could be a great job too if you know in that routine how that machine is going to work. If you have a goal set in mind, what are the steps to reach that goal? And if you have a good boss that says, you do this, you do this, you do this, and I'll do this, right? What magnificent can we create? But if we're all butting heads, if we're all doing our own thing, or you have somebody leading that team who is incompetent sometimes jealous or resentful because they are managing teams that are a well oiled machine and don't need directive, but because it's a reflection on the boss, sometimes, right? They find the extra work, they find all the little things that you miss, and they'll call you on it, right? They'll call you on it. And not only call you on it, they will make sure that everybody around knows that you made a mistake, that you screwed up, right? And I've worked for those people too. Maybe not for very long, but I suspect, a half a dozen years ago, I might have stuck around for years because I was that person who was looking to please, looking to keep her job, looking not to rock the boat, looking for everything to be spotless, looking for the compliments from the customers to roll into the management so that they could acknowledge how amazing I was. And not always did that recognition come. And that's why it's important for us to do that for ourselves. And more importantly, in that practice complimenting ourselves, right? Second that for ourselves because we know for ourselves what's the truth. Right and wrong, it's not difficult, but lots of times in those projections that were made to feel that we're not competent, that we're not intelligent, that we don't have anything to contribute. But more than often, right, when that is projected onto us, it's because somebody else is feeling a little bit insecure in what they're doing. Now, this is a fairly new lesson for me. I would have loved that opportunity to maybe, right, because I was looking to resolve issues, I was looking to find answers to things that I didn't know how to fix, right? And I thought that just working harder, right? Making more money for the company, showing the store as perfectly clean and organized, having those compliments roll in. I always thought, right? Multitasking, being able to do every person's job makes you indispensable. I thought that was enough. I didn't know that sometimes in doing that, you were showing the hires badly. I didn't even think of it as that. And in these past couple of days, you guys, I've been in it, because it's not ever in my intent to show anybody up, make somebody feel inferior, Or right, that's terrible if you're the boss or the manager and you have staff that are outshining you. And it didn't even cross my mind that that's what I was doing. And it wasn't with intent that I was doing that. I was just trying to make things better. I was just trying to repair relationships. I was right. I was just trying to get that acknowledgement of how amazing I was. And all I did was be the thorn, right? And it wasn't just me, because lots of times, because I was that person, right? I have to be the best. I have to multitask. I have to be able to do every job, right? And it was such a silly way for me to move. And especially, too, it didn't help when the customers would come in and go, "Is the manager here? The lady with the pink bangs." I cut my bangs too short yesterday. It's going to take a week or so until they go back to normal. Till then, I'm just going to live with it. But yeah, and that would infuriate the manager too. But that would infuriate me too, I would think, right? That if I was working hard to run a good show and right, somebody doesn't give you that credit, somebody doesn't give you that acknowledgement. So the way I felt is the way, right, that new manager felt. And it makes me soften a little bit because it doesn't change what happened, but it also reveals the hurt feelings underneath, right? So it puts me in a position where I can sympathize with others, understand a little bit better about how things worked out for all of us. I'm going to leave it at that. That wasn't meant to come in, but it's never, right? I never expect some of these conversations that I have to ever show up to the table, but they always do, and they're interesting. And I'll flow with them. If it comes to my mind, I will flow with them because they came to my mind for a reason, and I flowed in that for a reason, right? It's just a matter of where my place is, where I fit in the relationships in my life, where I fit actually in my life. And I try not to, right? Because I'm a goal setter. I'm always moving forward. I set goals and I move towards them. But I don't want to get so far ahead of myself that I come totally off track, or even worse, go down the track in the opposite direction than the direction that I'm supposed to be going in. And that quite easily can happen too. That's because we're in a hurry scurry like I was tonight. I'm feeling a little bit better now. Right? That's what those sighs are for, you guys. When you are in that hurry scurry, right? We do that breath work, and there's different types of breath work. I follow some pretty amazing people who do breath work, but it's the sighs that I love. I love the sighs. Yawns are amazing too, but sighs say it's over. It's relax time. Right? It feels so good when you do that. You're home. You're safe. You're quiet. The day's over. Tomorrow's another day. Whatever problems were today, they're still going to be here tomorrow. And if they didn't get resolved today, maybe they'll get resolved tomorrow. For this moment, okay, enough of that. Enough of that. Let's just pull a card. If you don't know 54 powerful words, let me just get my notifications off so I can see if Eugene yaps away at me, but I hope, Eugene, you're having a great day. Are you going to come into our Christmas Eve live this year, Eugene? You weren't in it last year. Christmas Eve, we go live every year. If anybody wants to pop in, 7:30 Central, December 24th, we have an annual Christmas party. We all sitting in our pajamas, usually with a cocktail or mincemeat pie when it comes to it's opening up a stocking that my sister does for me, and we just kind of hang out and keep company with each other. Christmas is usually a pretty quiet time for me. I'm not big on outings and stuff like that, but we usually get together with the family for a couple of hours on Christmas Eve. Now the big family thing has been over and done with, right? Since 2020, we haven't gotten together as a family for any celebration. Isn't that something? But that's change for you, right? And it will change into something else down the road, but still in this moment we are all right in our small units, right? My sisters and their families and myself, right? We just kind of have quiet Christmas now. And I think we actually even appreciate it, right? Because Christmas in a dynamic family, for those of you who come from dynamic families, you can imagine. You can imagine. Oh my goodness. Okay, you guys, I was just thinking of a Thanksgiving when I actually had to stand up from dinner, when I had just loaded my plate up with turkey dinner, and I had to stand up, walk away from the table, put my coat on, and leave my sister's house because, right, things get so right in dynamic families sometimes that the only way that you can, right, is to get out of it as fast as you can. And I paid for that one too. Of course, the empath is always to blame. The narcissist got away with it only because it was his house. Okay, you guys, let's just pick a card. We're just going to go into it for a couple of minutes. Oh my goodness, look what we got today. Goals. Goals are the choices that just have to happen. So the first thing that comes to my mind is my trip that I take every September. For those of you who don't hang out with me, I go to Ontario. I do a road trip every September. Fall is my favorite season. I love fall. I love the colors. I love the smell of the rotting leaves and the mushrooms. I love that there's no bugs. And I love that the parks are quiet, right? That I feel like I have the forest and the wilderness for myself, that I'm getting out on the road and I'm with myself. People all the time say, "Oh, Sydney, can I come with you?" And I've been doing these trips for, oh my goodness, a couple of decades for sure, right? But and I always say no because it's for me. This is the right. This is my goal that I do every year. One of my goals. I have goals. Where are my goals?